Leigh Zeta Carr, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate that you want to share your experience, because I know that working with the patients and consumers that there is a lot of great feedback. And I see that you've gone into the cannabis industry because of the benefits that you have seen with yourself and your family. I want to start out and say that you are a part of the American Cannabis Nurse Association. You're a contributing writer for Evolution Magazine, and you're the CEO of Hari Om Hemp in Kansas City with your husband, Dustin. So thank you again for joining me today, and I would love to hear the benefits and share with others the benefits that you've found using CBD.
Absolutely, yeah. So just a little bit of how we got started and how our journey started with cannabis was, I myself was a polypharmacy. I was on several different pharmaceuticals myself. I was on a pain contract with my physician for my opioids. I went in to get a refill for them. It was right at the time that Missouri had passed their voting and legislation and all that. And so I was in the process, like they had collected all the signatures and all that. And so I asked him what his stance would be if we saw Kansas ever go legal. And he looked at me like dead in the eyes and was like, well, do you consume now? And Dami was like, well, yeah, and it actually helps with my pain way more than the opioids do. So I left that appointment, basically fired as a patient, no longer able to get my opioids for my chronic conditions. And just the gist of that was, I was in 3 car wrecks in 33 days in 2011 and basically bedridden for 3 months after the last one. So I've got 2 herniated discs, torn discs, and rotation in my right hip and shortening. So someone that honestly needs medicine for their pain. Not someone that's drug seeking. So I went home in tears, not knowing what was going to be next, what to happen. And the nurse in me was like, well, let's figure something out. Let's look at something alternative. Started doing research. It was right around the time CBD was gaining popularity in like California and Colorado, and literally just kind of surfacing in the area here. Yes. And so I gave it a try. And within 3 months, I didn't need any of my pharmaceuticals. I was off every single one of them. And one of those being Ambien that I was on for 15 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So if that's not a testament that CBD can work, I don't know what is. Mm-hmm. But our driving force and reason why we started Hari Om Hemp was our son was diagnosed with ADHD in April of 2018. And we formed our business literally within that month. We were at a physician's office for over an hour with him trying to talk us into prescribing our, at the time, 4-year-old Adderall, Ritalin, Concerta. He even threw out a blood pressure medication. And at that point, I stopped him dead in his tracks and I go, why would you want to give him a 4-year-old a blood pressure medication for ADHD? He's like, well, we're seeing that it can really help with hyperactivity. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. And we literally left the appointment not letting him give us a prescription. Me and my husband walked out of there. We looked at each other and grabbed each other's hands and said, we're not going back there. Again, the nurse and me, the mom and me went home, started doing alternative research again. And again, CBD showing up left and right as an alternative for ADHD. I started researching more about CBD and sourcing it, all, extraction methods, where it's grown, how it's grown. And I was greatly concerned at that time because a lot of hemp was coming from overseas and we weren't testing it. We weren't knowing what it was full of. And my son with special needs, I wasn't about ready to put heavy metals into him or not knowing the source. And so that's when me and my husband went and founded our company, found the organic farm that we work with out of Eugene, Oregon. We created our company from the ground up, self-funded it. And the oil that we used, that they sent us out to try with our son, in one day we saw results in his hyperactivity and his anxiety, and it was like we had a different child.
Yes.
We have now been dosing him for over 2.5 years with it and have avoided all pharmaceuticals. I work with a lot of moms to also help them, guide them, if it's something they're wanting to do to switch from Adderall to it, but I won't ever recommend them stopping anything dramatically without their doctors. We can work with them or whatever.
Yes.
But I literally was looking on Facebook this morning too, and it was showing how Adderall is one molecule away from meth.
Right.
So, parents that are concerned about cannabis, or they're wanting to know, well, why should I switch from a stimulant to cannabis? And I bring the attention to them, this is a plant. It was put on this earth for a reason. It's not full of chemicals and toxins and
causing side effects and
not meth.
Side effects, yes.
Not going to stimulate your growth. Studies do show, that it can affect adolescents, brain, but there are studies showing that you can counteract that with adding CBD as a neuroprotectant. So there are ways around, the stigma and showing the different studies that we are now able to do. And it, hopefully when we vote this month with the MORE Act, that we'll get a lot more studying.
Yes, yes. And, one thing that I found when I wrote the ADHD and CBD article back in like 2018 was, a study that was done that showed that people that are ADHD or, diagnosed or undiagnosed with ADHD are prone to self-medicate with cannabis. It's interesting, I remember seeing, kids in high school, giving away their drugs and, their stimulants, using their, crushing up their Ritalin and snorting it and all that stuff, and then when I worked in the health food stores for 14 years, the feedback that I would get from parents, just giving their kid a tablespoon of flaxseed oil or cod liver oil, they would find that their child would focus and calm down after taking that, and that's a way to create our own endocannabinoids is with those fats, and our brain is 60% fat, so it makes sense. And so it's a shame that in the conventional approaches that these basic foundational things are not taught. We're just, they go straight to the addictive medications, and it blows me away that they would want to do that to a 4 or 5-year-old child, and get them started on those things so early instead of trying to take the preventative measures. Also, I found that when the kids were given some magnesium, that's relaxing the muscles, and that too, the combination of just omega-3s and some magnesium really helped the children. But yeah, I too have seen, how it's benefited people with focus using the CBD, and that's what the research shows, is that it's helping with attention and focus and reducing hyperactivity using the cannabis and the hemp plant for that CBD. So you do consulting as well. This is a new business venture that you're going into now that the dispensaries will be opening at some point soon. You're working with a couple of them, I understand, and you'll be doing some consulting with people that maybe need a little further assistance, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
So we formed our sister company, Harium Consulting, as we saw the need for cannabis education, as well as, offering different services such as helping patients get their certifications. So we actually help them fill out their forms, like people that are not able to. So we have that as well. So we have patient care coordinators that can help. So we offer a lot of different services. But yes, I offer different types of consulting. So I can do a CBD educational consult. We can focus on either a hemp, or we can focus on the cannabis plant. I can actually go to the store and shop with you if you're wanting someone to guide you in the store and help direct you to the right product. But then I also will be consulting for a couple of different dispensaries, and we'll be announcing those here really shortly on our site. So we're really excited about our partnership. So.
Great. And you'll be doing some telehealth consulting with that, with the medical cannabis dispensaries in conjunction. That's fantastic.
Yes, and telehealth is available now as well on our website for anyone that's wanting to get started, even help selecting a strain if they're going to be growing with a caregiver. So we also offer cannabis DNA testing, so we can swab your mouth, send it away, find out if you have any genetic mutation, or if there's certain terpene profiles you should stay away with, which ones would really be beneficial for you for either focus, sleep. So that's state of the art, and we're really excited to be offering that too.
Love it. That is fantastic. Neat to hear. Yep. So I guess, I was just looking back at that article that I had written, and I had noted about a couple cannabis experts, Dr. Frank Lucido and Dr. Bonnie Goldstein. She's a pediatric ER physician. And I just wanted to mention the dosing that they suggest for people that might be watching. So, generally we might say for chronic conditions to use like 10 milligrams 2 to 3 times a day. It's good to start low and slow, because often people find benefits just with small amounts of it. And they suggested that if a higher dose is needed to achieve, the health goal that they're trying to achieve, that they're suggesting for the pediatrics a 0.5 milligram per pound per day in 2 to 3 doses in the day, and going on up, increasing by 0.5 milligram at weekly intervals, up to the 2 to 6 milligrams per pound per day. So I just thought I'd throw that out there for anybody that's watching, because I know a lot of people have questions about how much they should be dosing.
And I generally try and explain it to them so they understand why you don't want to just, a lot of people want to just take a whole drop, or because they want relief. Like they want relief right away, just like an opioid gives you relief right away. You have to explain to them, your endocannabinoid system has been out of balance. It's not in homeostasis. It didn't take a day to get there. It's going to take some time to get it back in balance. So you want to start low and slow, because it works as it's biphasic. If you take too much, you're going to miss your therapeutic dose. You don't take enough, you're not going to get the relief. So that's why you need to increase slowly. So when you get to those results, that's your dose. And that dose isn't going to be the same for that person over there, because their endocannabinoid system could be completely different than mine, So just like in my studies that I was looking at a couple weeks ago, patients with PTSD, their levels of anandamide are lower than the normal person. So
yeah.
Which is fascinating that they're figuring all this stuff out.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yes. Yeah. It'll be great to see more human studies, and, just to say that anandamide is the bliss molecule, the endocannabinoid that our body makes from fats. So it's important to be consuming those anti-inflammatory fats, again, to be building and satiating our own endocannabinoid system, but also can find quick relief too by using that CBD as well, or medical cannabis. So maybe can you throw out your web address or how people can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website's www.hariom.consulting.com, and that's HARIOM, like Om. So like Hariom is also a Sanskrit mantra, like anandamide, and it means remover of all suffering. So I want to help remove everyone's suffering, and that's where that came from. And then my email is Leigh@hariomconsulting.com. So, and it's LEIGH.
Yes. Okay. At hariomconsulting.com. All right. Well, thanks so much for sharing your experience with your own personal experience and with the consumers that you interact with. And I love the work that you're doing to help potential new medical cannabis patients in the future to properly dose and find the best effects from using this plant. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot. And
No, thank you. And yeah, don't get discouraged with the plant. It takes time. Be patient with it. It's not an overnight fix. So
yes, give it some
that's all I
time.
can do.
Some people will say, oh, I've tried it and I didn't notice anything. But like you're saying, sometimes it takes saturating your
Mhm.
system for a period of time, right? And, maybe trying to
Yep.
give it at least a month trial of dosing each day and, maybe make a note of what your sufferings were in the beginning of the month and at the end of the month, noting any changes that have
Yep.
happened during that time. Yeah.
Yeah, I offer
Um,
journals to the patients and we'll track it and then we'll look at it on a follow-up appointment and stuff like that. So
That's great. All
yeah.
right. Thank you, Leigh. Thanks for
Thank you, Dr.
helping people. And I look forward to, hopefully interacting with you sometime in the future once
Yep.
we can
Once
do.
we get out of COVID, we can all give each other a big old hug.
That's right. Sounds good. So after our interview, we started talking about what's going on federally and with the states. And you're in Kansas state.
Mhm.
Uh, and it'll be nice to have that state be decriminalized. And what is the name of the foundation that you're working for? Tell me what your role is again.
So I am on the board of Bleeding Kansas Advocates, and then I also formed Kansas Nurses for Medical Cannabis. So both advocacy groups that are working on legislation in Kansas. We basically had the bill this year, had the votes, everything got shut down because of COVID. So now we're reworking the bill and we'll resubmit in January. So Kansas is different than Missouri. We can't go to ballot and vote. It has to go through the House.
Okay.
And so Kansas wants to mimic the Ohio model, and the Ohio model says no flower, which is, to me, the most medicinal part of the plant that you can use and make your own things. So they want to control it and let you only have like edibles and concentrates because they think they're safer than the flower, which
Yeah. It just needs to be decriminalized full board across the United States. It's pretty ridiculous to think that, a state is only going to allow concentrates and not flower as the medicine. So
yeah, it's literally against your rights to tell you, no, you can't have this. You know what I mean? Like
mm-hmm,
you can
mm-hmm,
have this, but you can't have this.
mm-hmm. You can't just have the plant. You have to rely on other people to do the processing when the plant is beneficial on its own.
We actually put a survey out through the Kansas Nurses for Medical Cannabis to all the representatives running, and 100% of the people that replied approve for legislation in Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
100% want to see it happen.
Good, good, good. Excellent. Well, is there anything else that you would like to put out there or to say as far as helping to get medical cannabis passed in Kansas?
If you are in Kansas, just educating your legislators, if you have connections in any of your groups or whatever, and educating doctors on it. We had a doctor in Wichita put out a statement saying that it's still considered a drug and that it's addicting, and it'll make you cringe if you see this article, basically. And so we've had to debunk that. We've brought on 2 doctors to try and debunk it. So it's really just getting the education out there that this plant is in fact medicinal to anyone that you can talk to.
Yes, yep. And I'm happy to provide the articles that I've written that sources the research, the cannabis research, to help educate these doctors and get past the stigma that they have
Yeah, that'll be
about cannabis. So we're seeing people's
absolutely.
lives being saved, using this plant and getting off of the medications that are killing so many people.
I mean,
And
people are
improving
getting off
quality of life.
hospice with this plant. A patient cured is a customer lost in their world.
Right.
So,
right. It's a sick healthcare system instead of,
yeah, it's not a health care system.
Yeah, sick care system. Yep. Well, thanks again. I just wanted to, I'm glad to hear that you're helping with trying to pass legislation in Kansas, because that really needs to happen. And
Yes, it does.
what you're doing.
Too many patients are having to leave and go across state lines and uproot from their families and their homes. So,
and then living in fear with, needing that medicine and, potentially having to go back to their home state. And, we need to stop putting people in prison for this plant. So thank you again.
Yep.